Man, it's been a bit since people died, huh? I just thought about that. Eva, don't you think we should cool our heads? I do think the receipt is going to be an important clue in searching for Father's whereabouts. We should tell the police about it when they come. Bryan is leading in.
What are you implying?
I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying it's been a while since people died, huh?
Answer the question, streamer.
Yes, you're right. Yes.
Answer the question, streamer.
I just felt a little triumphant when I figured out that part.
Answer the question, streamer.
Of course, it is fair to only doubt not saying this, huh? We were just as suspicious. But still, bad luck. At least the part about the receipt is real, alright? Don't forget this. And try thinking deeply about what this means, okay? Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi stood up. It looked like they had planned on leaving the parlor. In the end, it's pointless for us to continue playing detectives. After all, the police will reveal everything in the end anyway. That's right. Even if we don't play this detective game when the typhoon passes, and those lively seagulls return to the harbor, everything will settle itself. Yes. If you think about it, this kind of crime is completely trivial. It will definitely be resolved.
No, it won't.
Even if we do nothing. When the seagulls cry.
When they cry.
Natsune-san, I take it that you don't want to see my face anymore. I feel the same. If I remember correctly, yesterday you had some rooms prepared for us in the mansion, so we wouldn't need to go back to the guest house, right? There should be a bath and toilet there, as well as a lock and chain to secure the door. There's even a bed to lay on, and my husband will watch TV without having to fight with Maria-chan over which channel to watch, okay? Spoilers, there's a reason the asthmatic is so scared he gets attacked by it's because the asthma attack in the shower can kill you. Yep. You may do as you please. But make sure to be cautious. Thank you, Ne-san. And mind your own business. I'll be counting on you to keep an eye on everyone, alright? Because the killer is definitely among us. And that, Ne-san, make sure you don't forget that you're being watched too. Haven't you made enough parting remarks? Yes, that's enough. See you, Natsuki and Ne-san. Genji-san, please call for us when it's dinner time. Until then, we'll keep to ourselves locked in with the chain. Genji, Kanon, escort them to the guest room. We'll be fine. I don't want to end up being escorted by the killer.
Hideyoshi just has this look of like, what in the fuck are you just goddamn say to me about being locked in with a chain?
In fact, I would be more comfortable if nobody left this room until we reach ours. Let's go, George.
I'll stay here with everyone else.
George! The killer is in this room. Do you plan on staying in a place like that?
Leaving this room would be the same as suspecting one of my relatives. I refuse to believe that anyone in our family is capable of something so horrifying.
George! Honey, say something to him.
George is already an adult. If this code tells him not to leave this room, then it's up to him. Let him do what he wants. Father.
Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi left. The only voice that called after them was the sound of the rain. The parlor was being buried beneath the savage atmosphere. When I looked at the clock, I was surprised to find that it was already evening.
I can't face the night. I'm fine to wipe my ass.
Had we really spent that much time worrying, talking, fighting about such needless things? Feeling bored, I started clawing at my head when Maria and I made eye contact. Since I had thought she was completely immersed with the TV, I was a little surprised.
I'll believe it now.
Hmm?
The letter, the murders, everything, it was all Beatrice. No, actually, I wish she would just come out and say that it was true. I want it to be the work of a 19th person. Otherwise, the 18 of us will have to keep on doubting each other. I think believing in a 19th person is better than that. Bringing grandfather outside without opening the doors and windows must be a piece of cake with Beatrice, right?
Maria, after taking a single short breath, hung her head, then raised her face again.
I swear to fucking God.
That's right. Locking a door is useless against a witch. Beatrice is familiar with all 72 demons. The 33rd ranked, Gop, gives the power to instantly carry the desired person to any location. To her, taking a person out of any locked room isn't hard at all, you see.
Which is sure incredible. Tell her, if she still plans on committing another crime, to do it in a way that no human could. Make me believe that a 19th person, no, a witch, exists.
Alright. If I meet her, I'll tell her.
Damn it. I don't even understand my own thoughts anymore. When I'm led to believe in a 19th person, I deny it. When I'm led to believe that there are only 18 people, I deny that too. Even though I wish there were more than just 18 people here, I can't accept the existence of that 19th person. In short, even though there are more than 18 people, there are less than 19. The number of people in this mansion is 19 greater than X, but less... Wait, 19 is greater than X is greater than 18. So the number of people can't be represented by an integer. I got it! It's 18.5. However, it's impossible for there to be anything after the decimal point. You shouldn't be able to represent the number of people with anything but an integer. And yet, 19 is greater than X is greater than 18. Why does a fraction less than 1 play into this? It's no wonder. That 19th person is an invisible being that can't be seen. That's why, in the integer representation that it must be used to describe numbers of people, she can't be seen. That which cannot be seen. Because Beatrice has no body. Therefore, she is invisible. Is there a 19th person or not? Does this witch exist or not? 19 greater than X greater than 18. The witch exists somewhere in that X. Damn it, I keep breaking my screen. What the fuck? I know I'm the worst. Would you mind getting me a cherry?
Tell me how much.
Hmm?
I'm supposed to wait at the end of it.
Um, halfway? I'm gonna rough guess halfway? Yeah, I'm gonna rough guess. Because going through all of the important moments that need to happen between here and now, between here and there, I say we're about halfway. Halfway to tea party.
Oh my gosh, Fifi, you big goofy.
The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that thinking about who the killer was would be the same as deciding who to doubt. I know this game where anything can happen. I feel like our damn Maria is here playing pretend. She doesn't have a real connection to a witch who is indeed real, but she's revealing the fact that she does just being played pretend. I know what you're talking about. I fully believe Maria. Maria is 100% the killer.
Okay.
She totally could drag all 6 of those bodies into that storage shed.
Or
She
doesn't have to do it. Humans can.
So you're insinuating that she is Beatrice. And she has control of 72 demons. And these 72 demons carried 6 bodies into a storage closet.
Yeah.
Okay. I like your way of thinking. You'll like this game very quickly. So no one was mentioning it, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say aloud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. Maria's a secret bodybuilder. I just want to see Maria's head out of bodybuilder heaven to make image now. So, at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood, though everything was left unsettled.
It feels like the rain's gotten a little lighter.
Still pouring down.
Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island. But it'd be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow. I've had enough of this Western Mansion vacation. Yee.
Mom, when will the boat come tomorrow?
Originally, the boat would take them back to when they arrived at 3 o'clock today. They probably would have telephoned to say they would come after the typhoon passed, but unfortunately the telephones aren't working. But they aren't children over there. They were told this was for this purpose of dropping off and collecting our guests. They'll most likely arrive first thing in the morning, probably around 9 o'clock. It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized it was just past 7. I was starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She had laid out a variety of dishes, and while they didn't match the level of Goda's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, trying to use the food to enliven everyone's low spirits. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goda, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, since she had been brought up in a fishing village, the simple food she created was something very highly valued. Kanon arranged the food Kumasawa had finished creating on plates under her direction. Kanon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward, even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't skillfully arrange the food, Kanon's expression darkened slightly. But Kumasawa smiled to say everything was fine. Oh, it's arranged beautifully. Kanon-kun, aren't you skilled? If it had been Shannon-ne-san, it would have been even more beautiful. Kanon stopped arranging the food for a bit and hung his head. Shannon was the one who always assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight, Kanon was doing it instead. And as he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced. Forget about it now. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced upon. Shannon's oh yeah! By the way, for those who... First of all, as a recap to those who are here, don't spoil things. Don't spoil the game, obviously. Here are trigger warnings. Take them seriously. Thank you. And, Kraus, dead. Rudolph, dead. Kyrie, dead. Rosa, dead. Goda, dead. And Shannon, dead. Yeah. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced upon. Nanjo had escaped from the parlor once the mood had become sour, and Genji had become his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request. Yes, I will forget it for now. Good. That's probably for the best. Genji purposely faced away from Kanon as he spoke. He did so because he understood what might make things tougher on Kanon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eyes. Nanjo also understood that, and held back any thoughtless words. I wonder where Kinzo-san has gone. I hope that he is safe, but I do not know. Only, I think everything is as the master hoped, as he has arranged. To distrust that would exceed my role as furniture working for the master. Are you scared, Genji-san? I'm frightened something bad will occur again tonight. I have nothing to be afraid of. I simply work for the Ushinomiya family. Nanjo sighed through his nose and made carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. Could Genji possibly think that he would be left out of this? He couldn't begin to imagine what was happening inside this mansion. But he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that there was something of Kinzo's design. If you liken this island to chess, Kinzo had opened the game, and as a result, 6 pieces had fallen. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed he alone was outside the chessboard and safe? Najo thought about it. Wasn't everyone just a piece on this chessboard, lined up equally without any exceptions? It wasn't even Genji, who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone. No, it wasn't Najo himself, although proud of his position as Kinzo's only close friend. Just another of the pieces laid out on the chessboard? Genji-san, I'm really frightened about tonight. I'm hoping with all my heart that we will still be safe when tomorrow morning comes. The guest room that Eva and Hideyoshi had moved into was used to house guests before the guest house had been constructed. So until a few years ago, they had stayed in this room every family conference and were very familiar with it. This room, just like a room at a hotel, and a bedroom and a bathroom. Even so, they were still shut in. It was far more comfortable than the parlor. In case it's true, you can relax more when you're alone with your immediate family. They should all just do this. Shut themselves in guest rooms and lock the doors. But Natsu Ne-san's throwing her weight around, saying no one can leave the parlor. How can I even talk back? She's always felt she was being left out in the cold. So now that Nissan's dead, she's in high spirits, thinking her time has finally come. Seriously, how shameless can she be? Now, don't say that. Natsuhi-san's working pretty hard. No need to jump on her like that. And about that receipt earlier, you went too far with that. Oh, come on! If I hadn't said it there, it wouldn't be another good time to say it. Eva, sulking cutely, sat down beside Hideyoshi, who was lying on the bed watching TV. Still, it's been a very long time since we've been alone like this. Sure has. When I think about it, both you and I have gotten older. Since George's born, everyone thing's gone in the blink of an eye. It really has gone by in the blink of an eye. I wonder if we were too hasty in having a child. Eva's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Yes, she had thought it a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Her older brother Kraus had been unable to have a child for quite some time. 6 years passed after his marriage to Natsuhi without any signs of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. As for Eva herself, she would be removed from the Ushinomiya register anyway once she got married. So whether a successor to the head was born or not, it was all the same to her. So she had thought. But then, one day, she had a heavenly revelation. Or maybe it was the whispering of the devil that she had heard in her greed. Perhaps she could remain in the Ushinomiya register if she gave birth to a successor first. If things went well, perhaps she could even inherit the Ushinomiya family herself. When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he approved of it instantly. This had not been because Hideyoshi also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more that long-forgotten thing called family. So he agreed, without hesitation, not to fuss over which family name they were to keep upon getting married, and assented to having his name entered into the Ushinomiya family register. It wasn't easy to persuade Kinzo, but as his daughter, Eva knew Kinzo's personality well. So, she chose the time when Kinzo was most dissatisfied with Natsuhi, and expertly managed to make him accept Hideyoshi as a son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who had achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi, and permitted him to transfer into the Ushinomiya register. George would eventually become the successor to the Ushinomiya family. They raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. George had been worth their while, and had grown into a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That was why she couldn't stand that he was in love with a servant like Shannon. So when she had learned that Shannon had died and the engagement had been invalidated, while part of her had been shocked at the gruesome crime, another part of her had been relieved that her precious George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl. I always did hate Krasny's son. He was so full of himself, always swaggering around. So proud that he would one day become the head. So I wanted to get back at him. Those were just my emotions as a child, of course. But in the end, those emotions took over my entire life. If only that had been all. Because of those emotions, I got you and George involved, and I used you. Eva, don't blame yourself so much. Hideyoshi sat up and put his arm around Eva. She could feel a warm understanding from him. Well, I reached the halfway point in my life long ago. But you know, I have never once regretted how I lived my life. Not once. I think that since I've been with you, Eva, I've been able to relish an enjoyable life that other men never will. After I lost my relatives in the war, you taught me once more what the warmth of family is. So I'm grateful for the you should of me a family, and think of it as my only family. In this life I've led with you, not a single thing has been wasted. It's really been a fun life up to today. Thank you, honey. They love each other. No, regardless of their personalities, Hideyoshi and Eva love each other. Eva hung her head, burying her face in Hideyoshi's chest. Probably, no one in the parlor could even imagine that this side of Eva existed. I'm the one who should be thanking you. To this day, there hasn't been a single day that I've regretted being with you. Me too. I'm so glad to have you by my side. George is already a fine adult. He's a man who can do his job well on his own, even if I'm not there looking out for him. How about it? Around New Year's, do you want to spend some time in the Maldives? Hey, Bryan, you hear that? Just us two. No one else. No way! Aren't you always saying you're so busy responding to New Year's cards that you don't even sleep? None of that this New Year's. I won't read New Year's cards. I'll just stay quiet and check to see if I've won the New Year's lottery. It sure be nice if we won a color TV this year. No way! I do not want to check the lottery in the Maldives. Well then, none of that either. Just the two of us taking our time, carrying on from when we were newlyweds, just before George was born. Yeah, that does sound nice. I heard the Maldives are wonderful. An island with nothing on it, surrounded by beautiful coral reefs and cottages lined up over the water. Carrying on from when we were newlyweds. When will that be? As soon as I finish some business. I won't know until I've asked the travel agency, but probably before New Year's Eve. No way. Right now. I want to start right now. Peevishly, or maybe coquettously, Eva pled for his lips. The only sounds that filled the room were the distant sound, the voice of an announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi left on, and the obnoxious pounding of the rain against the window. Yeah, they about to fuck for a little bit. There was a knock on the door, and Genji-san entered. Madam, dinner has been prepared. Will you eat in here again? Yes. Bring it here. Is Dr. Nanjo still in the kitchen? Yes. He said it was that he wishes to carefully deliberate over his next move. Do not worry. He is with the other servants.
Genji-san's good enough to be at chess to be grandfather's opponent. I heard he's even better than Dr. Nanjo, you know.
Is that right? I played against him long ago, but he must have let me win. Maria, sounds like it'll be time to eat soon. But look at you, you've been watching TV all day and you still haven't gotten bored.
I'm always watching TV, so I'm fine.
Hey, Maria-chan sure is a TV kid.
Food's coming, so we have to clean up the table.
It was still cluttered with the aftermath of the drawing contest we had all been having, using several pages of torn out of Maria's notebook. Jessica had began cleaning up that quickly. Still, everyone here sure can draw. Really shocking. Genji, ask Eva-san and Hideyoshi-san whether they would at least like to have dinner with us. Although they will probably turn us down. Certainly. First father, now Eva-san. We seem capable of managing a full showing at the Urashiramiya dinner table. Natsuki felt her headache start throbbing again, and lightly held her temples. The distance from the kitchen to the parlor wasn't that large, so Genji had gone there and back by himself, but the guest room was a little farther away. Natsuki had warned him not to be alone without good reason, and just now Nanjo had also admonished him, saying that it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Genji took Kanon with him, and the two of them went to visit Eva and Hideyoshi in their guest room. Genji knocked on the door. Eva-sama, Hideyoshi-sama, dinner has been prepared. He waited a short while for them to come out, but there were no responses. Genji-sama, look at this. Kanon pointed under the door. A Western-style envelope had been inserted under it. Normally, when something was inserted this way, it would be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So, since this might be a private note meant for Eva and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kanon and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western-style envelope was Kinzo's envelope, the same as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with. There is no mistake. It's the Master's envelope. Or... Although it had been Kinzo's envelope, the author of the letter Maria read aloud last night had not been Kinzo. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a loud voice. Eva-sama! Eva-sama! It is Genji! Are you there? Please answer, Eva-sama! But there was no response from inside. Sometimes, when the servants went to call some guests for a meal, the guests would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servants would stick a letter under the door to show that they had called by, and would leave the guests be. However, despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Eva's name. But there was no answer. Kanon stuck his ear up to the door, holding his breath, listened for any sounds coming from inside. I hear something that sounds like the television, but I don't sense anyone. The room might be empty. Genji took out a handkerchief and, careful not to touch it with his bare hands, gently pulled out the envelope that had been stuck under the door. It had it sealed with this deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark of the sealing wax had come from the Ushiramiya family head's ring. Eva-sama! Eva-sama! Please answer! Are you still in your room? Even so, there was still no answer. There was still a chance that the two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This was the home Eva had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think that she had gone out on a casual stroll. Genji groped around his pocket and pulled out a bundle of keys, including the one that would open the guest room. Genji-sama! Kanon also understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock the guest door so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they had made sure the guest was out. To unlock the door for a separate reason, and especially to do so when there was a chance that the guests were still in there and without their permission, was an action unbecoming of a servant. However, Genji had decided. If the only problem had been his knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was doubtlessly Kinzo's. Or rather, one of the Western-style envelopes of the Ushiramiya family head. And after last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone other than Kinzo. Eva-sama! My apologies. Allow me to enter your room. After giving that final notice, Kenji stuck one of the keys in the bundle into the keyhole.
Oh yeah.
It was the sound of the door unlocking. And then he slowly turned the knob and slowly started opening the door.
You don't see another dead body?
Light seeped into the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? It was the sound of the door chain being pulled tight. The chain had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside. That meant they were in the room now. The sound of the voices on the TV seeped out of the room. The lights, the chain, and the TV. All of these made it clear that they were in the room. But there was no sign of it. Genji called to Eva once again through the crack of the door. But there was no answer. Genji-sama, what should we do? As part of their job, the servants were able to unlock almost any lock in the mansion, but they had no way to open the door with the chain. The only way to get by the chain was to cut it. That was certainly not permitted as part of a servant's usual work. A creepy chill was already rushing up their backs. Cannon held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he was not able to sense anyone. I'll go call Madame. Cannon, cut the chain. Yes. As Cannon rushed away hurriedly to get a cutting tool, he was called back by Genji. Wait, Cannon! Go back to the kitchen and take Kumasawa with you. Whatever you do, do not act alone. Yes. Certainly. It looked like Cannon was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation. But Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care what happened to himself. But in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything happening to Cannon. In the kitchen was Kumasawa, who was piling food on the serving cart. And Nanjo, who seemed to have thought of a move that would turn the tables on Genji, and had been awaiting his turn, wanting to show him. But he immediately realized something was wrong with Genji's demeanor. Oh, what has happened, Genji-san? Dr. Nanjo, my apologies, but please allow me to suspend this match for a time. Kanon, take care of the chain. Kumasawa, please stop the setting dinner now and accompany Kanon. I will go over to Madame. If you would come with me, Dr. Nanjo. Has something happened? Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen. Kumasawa-san, my apologies, but please come with me. What has happened, Kanon-chan? Unable to take in the situation, Kumasawa had said almost exactly the same thing as Nanjo in a chase after Kanon, who had flown out into the hallway. Accompanied by Kumasawa, Kanon went to the storehouse, and from amongst the tools packed in the toolboxes and hanging on the walls, he looked for a tool that could be used to cut the chain. What are you looking for? I will help. We're cutting a door chain. Where is that large bolt cutter? The door chain? Why would you want to do something like that? The chain is locked to Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama's room. Even though they should be inside, when we called out to them, they didn't answer. It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Eva and Hideyoshi not answering were connected. But she did realize this was an urgent situation. This will probably... Cannon took down a large bolt cutter that had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter, but maybe it would be easier to understand if it was described in the shape of a large pair of pliers. He recalled being warned that it was a dangerous tool that could easily cut through one of your fingers. Cannon took that and rushed up to the stairs. He knew it instinctively. He should fight for every minute, every second to open it quickly. Or maybe, already... Please wait, Kanan-san! Hurry! Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gasping for breath and with both hands on her knees. When Cannon changed his grip to the bolt cutter and looked up at the door, he let it... struck, speechless.
Well.
What is this? Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face pallid. There was no surprise, because right there, on the door, just like the magic circle that had been drawn on the shutter of the Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie shape drawn in paint with what looked like blood. However, it was dubious whether this one would be called a magic circle. Because unlike what most people would think of as a magic circle, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside it, but a slightly more geometrical shape.
Yes, the baby. Are you scared for us?
However, the strange non-alphabetical characters written in the gaps of the figure were without a doubt the same as the magic circle on the shutter. But the thing that had Cannon struck speechless was not how eerie the magic circle was. Only moments ago, this hadn't been there. He had returned to the kitchen for a short while. He had then gone to the storehouse to grab a tool and headed right back. Put those together, and it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? It was as though it had just been drawn. Almost like the door itself was bleeding. Several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripping down, getting longer and longer. Kumasawa's knees gave way and she sank down on the spot.
Thank you.
If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, then Cannon surely would have wanted to. Beatrice-sama! It's the work of Beatrice-sama! How horrid! How horrid! Cannon gulped, then readied the bolt cutter and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to the disturbing magic circle, and he really didn't want to touch the steadily dripping red substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he couldn't cut the chain. I can't hit you. I'm all the way over here. Oh, you're coming closer. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, went even closer, putting the bolt cutter against the chain. He then pressed with all his strength and cut through the chain far more easily than he imagined. The chain fell into 2 separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth. Kanon-san, by your feet, an envelope. And isn't that the master's? It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed the Western-style envelope at the bottom of the door, and the sealing wax had been sealed with the head's ring. Cannon was lost for just a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room, but he decided on prioritizing his original purpose. Cannon pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket, so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. If his worst fears had been realized, the police would want to investigate this room too. He slowly pushed the door open. He was able to hear the sound of the television that had been seeping out slightly more clearly now. Eva-sama? Eva was face up on the bed. On the bed with her shoes still on? Kumasawa, who had fearfully entered after Cannon and was hiding behind his back, screamed a short again when she saw Eva like that. Eva's shoes had been the first part of her that Cannon had seen, so the incongruity of wearing shoes in the bed was the first thing that entered his mind. But after he shifted his line of sight towards Eva's head, Cannon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa-san. Right in the middle of Eva's forehead, something was set there? Growing there? No. Right in the center of her forehead, an old-fashioned knife, or some weapon like it, was stuck right in. From the base of where it stuck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the other side bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more and she sank down to the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Eva, with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead, was dead. Both eyes were open wide, and the image of the person who killed her must have been burned into them. But the mouth with which to speak the truth had already been eternally sealed. Even though that forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was struck into Eva's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a design so complicated, you would never expect to see it on any ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object, with a design that might have been some demon. What about Hideyoshi-sama? Hideyoshi-sama! Eva was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backwards glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. At that moment, he opened the door. He was greeted by steam and the sound of a shower. The bathroom was of the same familiar style as most hotel rooms. Both contained a bath and a toilet. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep water from flying out. The waterproof curtain was half open.
You liar, we do see the body.
Not all of the bodies.
Buddies.
And lying tumbled down in the bathtub was Hideyoshi, completely naked, both eyes still open. And those eyes were pointed right at Cannon. Just like Eva, a weapon with a demonic design was stuck into his forehead. Like that.
I do believe I am dead.
Since his head had been under hot water of the shower the whole time, his face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Eva's had been. But the sight of him dead, while still taking a shower, was tragic enough. Just then, Natsuhi's voice rang down through the hall. She was probably coming with Genji. Get him with this graffiti! What about this letter? What does it say inside? I have not read it yet. We shouldn't touch it carelessly. The culprit's fingerprints might be left on it. We should hand it over to the police. They went out of their way to leave it here. I'm sure they wouldn't have left fingerprints. Stating this finality, Natsuhi picked up the envelope. I only read the manga. This was also watch you play. I tried playing it myself, but I'm keep getting sleepy your voice. Love you so much, Rochelle. Love you, Mochi. And before checking its contents, she entered the room herself, where she found Eva dead. Eva-san! Madam, Hideyoshi's-san is here too. This is truly atrocious. Cannon, turn off the shower. Don't let this be any more pitiful than it needs to. Yes.
Oh no, Hideyoshi's dead. Oh.
Cannon gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small bottle of body soap had fallen with its cap off. It really looked like he'd been tagged right in the middle of taking a shower. A spray of blood still clung slightly to the white bathtub, and the combination of red and white made a horrible contrast.
Never heard that before.
Dr. Nanjo. I understand. No signs of postmortem lividity. Rigor mortis hadn't begun either. I'd say barely an hour has passed since they were killed, if that. But even so, how a weapon with such a short handle could do that to a skull? I cannot imagine. Nanjo checked their pulse and their pupils, making sure their deaths once more. As Cannon watched this business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance that they're dead without doing all that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon, but after deciding where possible it would be better to hand the scene over to the police without disturbing it, he left it alone. However, a closer examination of the base revealed that it had no blade. Or rather, it wasn't shaped like a flat blade, but was conical. He had noticed, rather than a knife, it was more like a short-handed spear, something with a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing.
God damn it, Justinian.
Rather than a short spear, some people might even call it a thick ice pick. At any rate, the original hideous purpose of this weapon with its unsettling design was made. And exactly how that purpose was carried out were both displayed here in the glaring fashion. There was absolutely no need for use further words to describe it. Natsuhi, hoping to escape the repulsive steam of the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, the image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same feeling she had that morning at the guarding storehouse. For a while, Natsuhi couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting the sickness in her stomach. I can't let the kids... Can't let George could see in this room. Quickly, close this room up! Gracious, no, it shouldn't be shown to them. If George saw his parents in this brutal state... But the reckless approaching footsteps were obviously George's even before he came flying into the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlor. But when they had seen when they seen Genji call Natsuhi out and noticed her face turn pale and fly out of the room, they had felt that he might have been bearer of bad news. And when they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it.
Father! Mother!
What is this? Another magic circle?
Yeah, I got another to say now, huh, you little bitch? Auntie Ipa and Uncle Hideyoshi are safe, right? Hey, Kenan-kun! What's this all about?
Battler-sama. Cannon didn't even have to say anything. George's scream after he ran into the room told them everything they needed to know.
Bracket. Insert screaming. Close bracket.
Sorry guys, I would love to scream for you all, but one, I don't want to burst your ears, two, I don't want to burst the neighbors' ears.
Yeah, we really don't want to get noise complaints.
I had to do it for the volume. Go ahead.
Who did this? I'll kill you. I'll kill you!
George-kun, hang in there, dear. Natsuhi touched George's shoulder with her hand, but he violently shook her off. George collapsed on the floor beside Eva and buried his face in the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. And he pounded on the bed with his fist over and over again.
Oh, you're doing it for me. Thank you.
George-san. Hang in there. Battler-sama. Battler had his back against the wall of the hallway and was, without restraint, covering his eyes with his right hand and weeping.
Horrible. That's horrible. He proposed to the girl he loved and lost her the next day. And on the same day, even his mom and dad were killed. Isn't that just way too harsh?
Of course, he felt sorry for everyone who had died. But for Battler, he felt far more sorry for those who had been left alone by the deaths of others. Everyone here had lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one who felt sorry for him. However, George's pain was far greater than everyone else's. Battler.
People die sooner or later. If you're human, the day's gonna eventually come when you've got to fight the sorrow of losing someone close to you. But still, shouldn't that day be far in the future for Aniki? And shouldn't those deaths visit him one at a time? Oh, that's too horrible. Bastard. Bastard! Don't you have the slightest bit of human compassion? Ah! That dude.
Battler, don't cry, don't cry.
Don't you fucking start, you little shit.
Maria tried to comfort Battler in a mechanical-sounding voice. Battler violently wiped his tears.
Ah. Damn it. I won't cry anymore. Tears of regret, tears of sadness. I won't shed them again, except when the next person dies. Yeah, there's no goddamn good at all.
Because he's a big baby.
They're just backing us into a corner. They're always on the defensive. And that's no good. It's no goddamn good. I'll flip over the chessboard. Master probably thinks of us like sheep, just carrying a tree until tomorrow with no way of running.
See, I'll flip over the chessboard and then use it like a mallet.
But guess what? I'll flip it over. That bastard can't escape this island until tomorrow either. I'm not stuck in here with you. You're stuck in here with me. We won't be the ones hiding away pissing ourselves. That fucker will. I'll expose you. You'll see. By tomorrow, forget tomorrow. Tonight, before this night's over, I'll be gripping you by the collar.
I guess you only have 4 hours left. Can you do it, Battler-sama? At any rate, we'll lock this room and leave everything as it is until the police come. All agreed? Natsuhi proclaimed it as though she didn't care whether they agreed or not. If anyone had the right to object, it would have been George, but he looked as though he had shed enough tears. Still facing away from them, George nodded slightly and rose to his feet, and everyone else agreed in response. Natsuhi still hadn't opened the head Western-style envelope she had picked up. But since they would all be leaving the room now, she decided that she would unseal the parlor where everyone could watch. As soon as they walked out into the hallway to head back to the parlor, some of them immediately felt something out of place. Or maybe sensed something strange.
Stinky. You noticed it too, Maria?
What is this stench? It smells awful. As they all sniffed the air, they did notice a horrible, foul, burnt smell, unlike anything any of them had ever smelled before, drifting through the hallway. I will go check. I will go quickly check the kitchen, and my voice actors maybe will stop having dyslexia. I'm sure I turned the flame off. After noticing a burnt smell, it was natural that Kumasawa, who had just been cooking in the kitchen, suspected that her own clumsiness had caused it. Kumasawa hastily dashed away. Kanan-san, go with Kumasawa. Do not let her be alone. Yes. After nodding to Genji's order, Kanan went chasing after her. He's going to turn that witch into a flea, and he's going to put a fly in that box, and he's going to put that box in another box, and he's going to mail that box to himself, and when it arrives, smash it with a hammer! The others, although they did not run, also followed in order to search for the source of the smell.
Stinky!
It truly is a stench that makes the nose wrinkle. However, I'm not sure it would be safe to open a window for ventilation. Natsuhi was reluctant to open the windows in a situation where self-defense was so important. Let us run the fan. I do not believe there will be any need to open the windows.
George Aniki, is it okay if I talk to you? If it's about me finding the killer, then I have no problem.
It seemed that George had already climbed off the abyss of his sorrow. All that filled his chest now was a quiet flame of hatred towards the killer who had stolen the lives of his beloved parents.
The chain for the room was set. From what I could tell by looking at it, I'm positive that it couldn't be opened from the outside. In other words, that means it was a perfect locked room. Yes, it does. In the case of the Rose Garden storehouse, they might have sneaked the shutter's key out of the servant room. Maybe they had a duplicate key. I can imagine many ways they could have done it. But this chain is different. Among generally used locking techniques, a chain is the simplest one to create a locked room with.
Only a chain will block everyone from coming out from the outside as long as it isn't physically broken. So does this mean So does this mean that the culprit could have gone in or out of the door?
That's interesting. Just a few hours ago, I seem to remember everyone making a fuss over how to get out of a room without using that door.
Back then, everyone was making a fuss over how grandfather had disappeared from his room. Because of the receipt that Auntie Eva had stuck in the door on a whim, it was revealed that the door had remained sealed. And since Aunt Natsuhi had been the only person to enter or exit during that time, she had become under suspicion. Auntie Eva had proposed a theory about how Aunt Natsuhi might have thrown grandfather out the window, and left the door by herself. But this door is much simpler. This was sealed from the inside by the door chain. The window had also been closed from the inside, and the windows had been in the room. Bryan's an asshole! Michaela, you know why. The window had been closed from the inside, and the bodies had been in the room. This time it really was, without exaggeration, a true locked room. That's right. If you include grandfather's disappearance, 3 incidents have occurred, and all 3 times, the door has been a point of interest. First was the shutter. There was a key to the servant room, and if we assume someone knew about this, this really can't be called a locked room. Next was the door sealed by the receipt. However, since Aunt Natsuhi had entered the room, she could have left grandfather out through the window, or thrown him out, or she would have been able to lock the window before leaving. Or, like my crazy theory, he could have hidden until the receipt was gone and left the room later. Basically, this door can be defeated with a handful of desperate tricks. In a sense, you really can't call this one a locked room either. Now, we have the door sealed with the door chain. Finally, we have to give up. The door, the window, everything had been locked from the inside. It was a perfect locked room. The first hadn't been a locked room because everyone could be suspected. The second couldn't have been a locked room because not he could be suspected. But this one, for this time, no one can be suspected. This room was a perfect locked room, sealed by a door chain and that denied access equally to everyone.
In that case, did the culprit carry out the crime without entering the room? Some method from outside the room?
Good thought. It is a chain, so even though it can't be opened wide enough for a person to fit through, you can open a small crack. The culprit could knock on the door and make them peer out before attacking them, or... Wait, is that naive?
Yeah, it is. If Auntie Eva's body had been lying right next to the door, then it might have been possible. But she was on the bed in the center of the room, and Uncle Hideyoshi was even in the bathroom. Looking from the crack in the door, you couldn't even see them, and you couldn't reach them with your hands either. Damn it, this is no goddamn good at all. I don't have a clue.
Something was tugging softly at my sleeve. It was Maria.
You better not have that creepy look on your face.
Satisfied?
What do you mean, satisfied? I'm going to fucking dropkick a little kid, I swear to God.
Battler, since you didn't want to doubt any of your relatives, you made a wish. Saying you wanted the culprit to be Beatrice, right? Well, Beatrice granted your wish. Just as you said, she did it in a way that no human could, to make you believe in the witch.
I'm going to dropkick a little kid.
Yet you're being stubborn.
Thank you.
Ouch!
I tapped Maria, who was laughing unpleasantly, on the head with my fist.
Sure, thanks for granting it. That was an expression of my gratitude, and a free lesson in not laughing at times like this. More importantly, tell me, there was more mysterious graffiti on the door to Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Was that another magic circle?
It was an especially memorable and characteristic design, so I'd hope you at least know that one. Ow!
I don't know. That's why I've handed the stage over to you. Quit whining and explain.
You're sure violent, Battler. I won't tell you if you're too mean, get it? Ouch! I'll say it, you brutish man. That's the first magic circle of the moon.
Yeah, that was a weak Castlevania game.
15 more minutes!
Baby.
We love you! 15 more minutes!
What does it mean? What is this magic circle's benefit? What does the Hebrew writing mean?
The words are from the Old Testament, Psalm 107, verse 16. For he has broken the gates of brass and cut through bars of iron. This magic circle has two effects. First, it can open any door regardless of the method used to lock it.
That sure is convenient magic. So your witch is proclaiming this to be a door that can't be opened without relying on the power of magic? And the other effect?
It takes upon the opening door as a representation of an unassailable situation and opens it. By using it in a different situation, it gives you a solution you hadn't even thought of until then. To put it simply, it grants the powers of observation and discernment, inspiration and intuition.
Now explain it in Fortnite terms.
Beatrice is trying to provoke you lowly humans since she thinks there's no way you could ever understand how this door was open. Ow!
Alright, good work. Now shut up. Suits me fine. I accept that witch's challenge.
Don't you think that it's happy that I portray you as Battler now, that I compare you to Battler sometimes now?
I can see why.
There you go.
Maria-chan. Things like witches and demons don't exist in this world. Someone killed mother and father. I don't know whether that someone... Sorry, must be on some Jolly Ranchers. I don't know whether that was someone I can know or not. But either way, it was definitely a human.
Yeah, but how? How did they reach them through a crack in the door that couldn't have been more than 10 centimeters wide? At any rate, I can hardly stand the stench. What in the world could it be? Kanon and Kumasawa, who had gone ahead, realized before they even reached the kitchen that the smell wasn't coming from there. This was because, on their way to the kitchen, they noticed that an even thicker wave of stench was rising up from the stairs leading to the basement.
Okay, I thought it was Ava and Hideyoshi avoiding their bowels or something.
La Mao? The boiler room. I wonder if something has gone wrong with the boiler again. So, those stairs led to the underground boiler room. The mansion's boiler was old and had been playing up recently. Both of them had witnessed problems with the boiler on several occasions, but they had never smelled it belching out a stench like this before. What was that sound? The door, the sound that they had heard from the basement was definitely the sound of a door closing. Although she did phrase it as a question, Kumasawa, too, had realized that the sound couldn't have been anything else.
Kinda looks like he has a gun to his head.
He's like, fuck, I gotta make sure I say the right thing, fuck! Kumasawa, don't kill me! Kumasawa was so surprised at the sound that her knees gave way yet again and she cowered. Because, at that very moment, no one could have been in the boiler room.
Or could they?
Just a few seconds ago, everyone had been crowded together in Ava and Hideyoshi's room. So who caused the sound and the door closing just now? Kanon-san! Instantly gathering the situation, Kanon ran down towards the basement. Since they had heard the sound of the door closing just now, and there was no trace of someone climbing the stairs, it meant that the person who had closed the door was now inside the boiler room. If the boiler room had been a dead end, Kanon wouldn't have rushed in so hastily. But Kanon was a servant, so he knew. There were two entrances, one that opened to the mansion, and one that opened to the courtyard. If he didn't chase them now, they might slip away. Kumasawa reached the same conclusion long after Kanon did, but she couldn't let him go alone. If the thing in the boiler room was the killer, an opponent who had easily killed 6 adults in the first murder, then Kanon would be no match if he simply confronted them alone. Of course, by this argument, Kumasawa joining him alone wouldn't mean anything, but... At any rate, after a delay, Kumasawa decided she mustn't let Kanon go alone, and she dashed down the stairs. At that time, Kanon was already in the boiler room. The boiler's room characteristic damp heat tormented him. It had always been an unpleasantly smelly and hot place.
Why does this look like an unused set for Nightmare on Elm Street?
And on top of that, the room was full of that horrible stench, which made Kanon feel like he was going to be sick. There was no doubt that this room was the origin. In that case, Kanon would have been searching for where the smell was coming from. However, Kanon kept gazing straight forward as he grabbed a hatchet from the tool shelf just off the side of the door. He hadn't stretched out his hand because he wanted a hatchet. He had wanted to grab a weapon. Any weapon. Why? Kanon gazed into the darkness where the naked light bulb couldn't pierce. Then, he answered. In roulette, you bet on a number with the colors red or black, vying for a payoff. However, low-risk bets like red or black only offer a similarly low payoff.
Yeah.
The words coming from Kanon's mouth were swallowed up by the darkness. The darkness suddenly started to swirl, glittering. Kanon, who had been standing in the doorway, turned to face Kumasawa. He said, "You bet on a number with the colors red or black, vying for a payoff. However, low-risk bets like red or black only offer a similarly low payoff." The words coming from Kanon's mouth were swallowed up by the darkness. The darkness suddenly started to swirl, glittering.
Hmm.
It was a very fantastical scene. Gold, sparkling butterflies that had hid in the shadows all over the boiler room
Like 2 seconds.
flapped their wings, twinkling beautifully, and disappeared into the darkness, gathering together. Cannon continued speaking, directing his words at the darkness as it swallowed the butterflies up. But as the butterflies gathered in the darkness, they, perhaps, probably, no, they must have, laughed. But Cannon continued to speak without faltering in the slightest. On the other hand, if you bet on something of lower probability, you receive a payoff proportional to the risk. The master called succeeding despite an astronomical risk a miracle, and called the astronomical payoff gained as a result magic. I have no interest of what kind of magic you and the master were seeking when you spun that roulette. But you forgot something. You forgot that roulette has a pocket that neither red or black. Roulette has a special pocket called 0, which means that the house takes everything, in which certain variants of the game. Meaning that all of the coins bet on the table would be swept up, just as though everyone had forfeit. I set my heart on one thing. That if Shannon were to be killed, and I was left alive, I would bring this roulette of yours to ruin, even at the cost of my life. This isn't one of the Master's rules, and it certainly isn't one of yours. I made this rule myself. I'm not furniture anymore! I am the 0 on your roulette! Cannon's face twisted with humiliation. It was clear that he had been dealt ridicule in response to his self-denial. Cannon's brow creased even further. A furious expression that he had never shown to anyone appeared on his face. The hand grasping the hatchet was shaking. His sweat became drops which slid down. It was clear that the emotion causing Cannon's hand to shake was not anger alone. However, Cannon suppressed that emotion.
Why does the sound effect sound like... You know, like the sound cats make when they fall in water and like meow really loudly?
Yeah.
It almost sounds like that.
I wonder why the project is called Catbox.
How was I supposed to know that? I'm not a...
No, just in general.
I'm not an Umineko nerd like you.
I won't let your words lead me astray again. This is where the demon's roulette ends.
Oh, you poor deluded fool.
Wait another 1,000 years in hell for your next summoner. Beatrice! I would yell more, but yeah. When Cannon swung the hatchet upwards and tried to dive into the darkness definitely sneered. It sneered at the courage of its vulgar, lazy, futile, and meaningless.